All right, let's get started. Welcome everyone to a celebration of literature and living writers. I'm Megan Marshall. I'm the director of the Hugh C. Hyde Living Writers series. And tonight is the final event of the fall semester. But we're concluding, in my opinion, the very best way possible by celebrating the work of an SDSU beloved, who, as I mentioned, is joining us all the way here from Princeton. So hopefully, Marilyn, you had your cappuccino, your espresso. Yes, you are ready to go. Even though we are coming to you via Zoom tonight, I do want to acknowledge that we are privileged to share the Kumeyaay land here in San Diego. And as members of the SDSU community, we acknowledge, respect, and celebrate their legacy. I'd also like to take a moment to thank those who have helped to make this event and the semester series possible. And that includes Markle Tumlin, who's my fabulous co-host, and our other friends at Love Library, Danya Muka Hall, Laurel Bliss, and Rebecca Williamson. And I also want to thank the Department of English and Comparative Literature for their continued support of this series. So just a couple reminders. As mentioned, please keep your mic muted during the presentation and know that this event is being recorded. If you'd like to view the recording after the event, please visit the Living Writers YouTube channel. There's lots of great content on there. My students are in the process of creating new videos that will be posted soon. So lots of fun stuff for everyone. So check us out on YouTube. And then after our reading portion concludes, we'll have some time for Q&A. So at that point, feel free to use the little hand raise function or throw a question into the chat, and we will get to as many as possible before we turn into Zoombies. Well, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our featured reader. Marilyn Chin is a highly decorated poet and author. Born in Hong Kong and raised in Portland, Oregon, her works have become Asian American classics and are taught in classrooms internationally. Marilyn Chin's books of poems include Sage, the newest one, which she's going to be sharing from tonight, A Portrait of the Self as Nation, Hard Love Province, Rhapsody, In Plain Yellow, Dwarf Bamboo, and The Phoenix Gone, The Terrace Empty. She also published a book of fabulous magical fiction called Revenge of the Mooncake Vixen. In addition to writing poetry and fiction, she has translated poems by modern Chinese and Japanese poets. When it comes to awards, Marilyn is like the EGOT of the poetry world. She received the Ruth Lilly Prize for Lifetime Achievement in Poetry, the American Academy of Arts and Letters Award, the United Artists Foundation Award, the Radcliffe Institute Fellowship at Harvard, the Anisfield-Wolf Book Award, the Rockefeller Foundation Fellowship at Bellagio, the PEN-Josephine Miles Book Award, 2 NEAs, the Stegner Fellowship, a Fulbright Fellowship to Taiwan, and others. She has read and taught workshops all over the world. She is Professor Emerita at SDSU and presently serves as Chancellor at the Academy of American Poets. Marilyn describes herself as being an activist, subversive, radical immigrant, feminist, transnational, Buddhist, neo-classical nerd poet. Say that 5 times fast. Her work represents a delicate yet delightfully wild cross-pollination of her experiences as an Asian American and as a woman with deep political fervor. It opens an eclectic world in which folk songs can be resurrected in a contemporary context, such as in the Ballad of Student X. Can you give me an incomplete and comment on my poems? There's one about my grandmother who died of COVID. We shared a virtual hug, teared up on Zoom. In a world where Emily Dickinson and Lauryn Hill can coexist. Blow my head off, says Emily. Kill me softly, covers Lauren. The space between life and death is a faint aroma of sadness. As a former MFA cherub, I had the pleasure of taking classes with Marilyn. And I think one of the most delightful things about Marilyn and her work is that she never takes herself too seriously, but she always writes with purpose. She taught me and many other students the power and importance of fostering an imagination that favors chaos and rebellion over reverence. Of her own aesthetic, she states, I don't quite believe in art for art's sake. I believe there must be a higher order. What we write can change the world. and what she's written absolutely has in so many countless indelible ways. So please join me in giving a warm welcome, SDSU beloved, Marilyn Chin.
Thank you so much, Megan, for that wonderful introduction. I hope I can live up to it. Goodness gracious. It's so nice to be back. I'll be back soon. I'm getting, used to this cold weather, I think. But I look forward to coming back to San Diego. How many have you read this Sage? It's how many? Okay.
Got 32 in my class.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a reading, and then I'm going to ask you I'm going to ask you to suggest poems that you want to hear, because you've read the work. So I think that would be nice. I'll open up for you to your suggestions. I'll begin with the first poem called Looking for the Sage. Now, if you notice about this poem, it's very simple. It has an anaphora. It's a very simple poem, but I'm going back to some of the poems. I go back to the Taoist simplicity. This one is called Looking for the Sage. Some say she moved in with her ex-girlfriend in Taiwan. Some say she went to Florida to wrestle alligators. Some say she went to Peach Blossom Spring to drink tea with Tao Chen. Miho says she's living in Calexico with 3 cats and a gerbil named Max. Some say she's just a shadow of the great society, a parody of what might have been. Ria saw her stark raving mad between 23rd and the Avenue of the Americas, wrapped in a flag. I swear I saw her floating in a motel pool, topless on a plastic manatee, palms up. What in hell was she thinking? What is poetry? What are stars? Whence comes the end of suffering? So the Buddhists always talk about suffering. But as you can tell, this is really a poem about multiple identities, right? It is a poem about San Diego because Calexico is here, but then it's a poem that goes back to Tao Chen, the Taoist poets, right? So it goes back in history, and it's very much in the here and now, in the land of San Diego, right? The borderlands. And so I thought it was important to open up with a very simple poem, and yet one that covers the spaces of my life and my history, my personal and familial history. Now, this one is called You Go, Me Stay, 2 Autumns. Now, this one, it's in every book I have these performative pieces, and this one is performative because I asked the audience to chant the refrain with me, and the refrain is also the title of the poem. You go, me stay, 2 autumns, which is a line. It's a haiku by Masayaka Shiki, who his dates are 1867 to 1904. He wrote 20,000 haiku in his lifetime, and so I celebrate his life with by using his haiku as a refrain for this poem. So when I point to you, please chant the refrain with me. What else can I say? Well, you will hear polysyllabic rhymes, hip hop polysyllabic rhymes. So yes, a couple of students sent me some mixtapes, and I said, I can do better than this. So I include polysyllabic rhymes in here just to play with the hip hop boys. Okay. And I'm also employing Chinese parallel couplets. So, okay, so there we go. You go, me stay 2 autumns. Wipe your lipstick off the milk carton. Get off your high horse and wicked palanquin. Dye your ancestral roots kryptonite day glow. Paint your posable thumbs, urban decay bonobo. Photobomb a grief group, confess you're happy. Hang upside down off a moonbeam, screech like a banshee. You go, me stay 2 autumns. You go, me stay 2 autumns. Donne and Keats scratching tunes in the kitty litter, purring poetry and God through a negative iron capacitor. Air hug your biker neighbor, not too tight, she might bite. Rock roses and jasmine bathe in chain-linked light. Queen bees a hiving beyond meat on the Barbie. Squid ink gnocchi 6 feet away still looks nasty. You've been knocking down mojitos, face-licking boy chicks at the grotto. Aunties decoupling, sending you back to Idaho. You go, me stay 2 autumns. You go, me stay 2 autumns. Catch a midge in midair, kiss her skinny lips, let go. A raven attacks my wig, he's Edgar Allan Poe. Twittering in twilight, raptors killing doves. Some singing about inequality, some crooning love. Don't fall for the pool boy, ain't got a pool. Don't fall for the girl boy, can't do ambiguity. But please wear an N95 face mask if you want to see me. You go, me stay 2 autumns. You go, me stay 2 autumns. June says you're too quiet, Mei-Ling. Go shout at a rainbow. Adrienne says, come visit Michelle and me for utopian fish gumbo. Why do I speak to the dead? 'Cause the living are a-holes. Sorry about that, audience. Fat man, little boy, someone will hit bottom. Why worry about nuclear winter? Our species will be forgotten. You go, me stay 2 autumns. You go, me stay 2 autumns. The princess on the left says you rhyme with rich. The princess on the right says your poetry is shit. Over 1 million dead, better stay home. You might be next. I'm not funnier than Stevie Smith waving her undies. Not funnier than Margaret Cho. I'm not that bold. Funnier than Aristophanes. The frogs croak. No, oh. You go, me stay 2 autumns. You go, me stay 2 autumns. Is that a 19th century Mauser, or are you happy to see me? Don't brag about your viral load. You're a peon amongst peonies. Hating Black people, though one is your brother. Hating white people, though one is your mother. Killing racism like killing lice. Bomb it, raid it, will return Minnesota nice. You go, me stay 2 autumns. You go, me stay 2 autumns. Visit Granny Wong in her raised metal bed. Helped her to root erase aubergine drag. She told me this story. Sorry, my translation is bad. One day, whilst shopping at Walmart, a hoodlum grabbed my brocade purse and called me a stupid old chink. I chased him down the parking lot, hooked his ankle with my phoenix claw cane, dragged him home in my flying wheelchair, reciting the Dharma of 6 thieves, steamed some butterfly shrimp dumplings in celestial garlic persimmon cream. He gorged 3 bowls and licked a spoon, then napped in my lazy boy like a prince. I said, "I'll call your mother to fetch you," he said, "but my mother is dead." Praise the mysterious female, mysterious female. Praise the mysterious female, mysterious female. I met a masked vaquera at the border fair. We line danced to Cupid's Shuffle, an achy, breaky heart. She loved Selena, Shakira, and cumbia bands. Don't remember much now, but the pony can dance. You go, me stay, 2 autumns. You go, me stay, 2 autumns. As you can see, it's a border poem, really. And I wrote it, I wrote most of this book during the pandemic. So the face mask is here. And I employed a lot of punning, jokes. So I'm trying to be funny. I think the poetry world is not funny enough. There aren't that many funny poems out there. So I'm employing irony, sarcasm, humor, even bathroom humor, right? Sexy humor, and phallic humor. So it's really about having fun with with imagery, fun with rhyme, bringing rhyme back to poetry. I think a lot of people are rhyming now. I mean, I've been seeing rhyme lately. I think it's influenced by hip hop, I think. Now this piece is called If, and it's not by Rudyard Kipling. Now this piece, it's got a lot of modernist jokes, and literary jokes, and I don't know, so I'm once again I'm trying to play with, try to play that Taoist sage who's who is ironic, who's funny. If you look at the ancient texts, those Taoists and especially Zen poets were really hilarious. I mean, and some of them are mean too, but they're hilarious. If, not by Rudyard Kipling. If you wear a red dragon, okay. Do you know that famous poem by Rudyard Kipling? Yes, no, okay. Well, look it up. It's beloved. It's a beloved poem. Okay, I'm playing off of it. Okay, if, not by Rudyard Kipling. If you wear a red dragon on your dress, they'll call you Oriental. If you wear pink jammies in the rain, they'll call you a big baby and still call you Oriental. If you dance naked eating plums with a side of white meat chicken, they'll call you Oriental by way of Williams. If you wear a dragon dress size 18, they'll call you an elephant. If you wear a dead fox on your head, they'll elect you president. Speak in growls and tweets and threats. You are proud to buy American. He'll sell you a piece of Plymouth Rock and 72 virgins in heaven. Yeah, you are stupid, but you are our stupid. If you are pure of blood, you must not be an American. Professor Gates will shake your ancestral tree and prove that you are half pangolin. I'd rather be one than eat one. I'd rather eat one than be one. If a conditional marries a conjunctional, you would be a pink-eyed proposition. From the perspective of a gull, we are a raft of tasty excrement. Oh, gray and lonely April day, T.S. Elephant, T.S. Elephant. Now that's supposed to be funny only for those who read poetry. So I don't know. Is it funny? Okay. Yeah, I wrote a bunch of quasi sonnets in here. Several of them named Sage. This one is called Girl Sage, and it is a quasi sonnet. You know, it says I call them sonnet niece. They're cross between sonnets and Chinese lyrics. So this one is called Girl Sage. I'm the yellow girl who flunked algebra, calculus, Sudoku, all matter of math, who shouted preceptor excreta on the debate team, then vaped all night reading Sylvia Plath. Skipped social studies, cause I'm antisocial. TikToked a bloody dance battle with Norco, girl gang, trash. Granny canes me hard, make me kowtow to some toothless, clawless ancestors. Brother shouts, you're a disgrace to our race, loser brat. Time to escape in my Shaolin jetpack, avenge the fallen mothership, never turn back. The sage wears a double-bladed necklace. So what? The world is unjust. So yeah, this one also I call sonnet niece. It's called Advice for E. Be the stealth between stones, the abracadabra among clones. Be the fighting fish with a fancy tail, the wizard who deifies gnomes. No worry, be happy. Missiles flying while innocents are dying. You're pretty nimble for your age. One day a wombat, next day a sage. On the way to feeding a despot, you summoned your rage. Most virtuous mother, don't be fooled. They will bomb our shelter, scorch our earth, unwind, regroup, turn swine into pearl. Be the change you want to see in the girl. So yeah, this poem, I didn't use any punctuation. I used spaces for breath. I did that for various others to give you the feeling of the silence between stones is the silence between stones is just as important as the stones. Any requests thus far?
So I think there were a few in the chat. Let's see. Chair and Inquiry, Little Girl Etudes, Ballad of Student X, Box Measures. Any of these sounding
Okay.
good?
Okay. All right. Okay, okay. These are ones I yeah, okay. Let's go for them because yeah, okay. Interesting. All right. Interesting what you want. Okay. It's an educated group over here. Okay. Okay. The Ballad of Student X. Okay, when I first started teaching at SDSU, I taught this huge 200 person intro to lit class. And for some reason, the word was out that I was an easy teacher. So the fraternities, brothers, and a lot of them took my class, and they come to class drunk on the skateboards and so forth. They were a riot. But I, and I said someday I'm going to write a poem for them. So this is it, and this is filled with, this is definitely a border poem. And about, we know about those fraternity brothers. They're all, some of them were arrested a few years ago. So yeah, okay, this is like I'm not talking about any individual here. This is like a composite portrait. The Ballad of Student X. In TJ, he downed 8 shots of mezcal, ate the worm. 2 prostitutes and a hellhound stole his skateboard and hundreds in cash, stabbed his friend while he blacked out in a ditch. His mother wired me $5,000 to bail him out. He's an animal, a jackass, but he's my student. If he dies in a TJ prison, he'll be on my conscience. She said he got straight A's and decent SATs, captain of the football team in junior high. After my divorce, he went through a bad patch. Could have been all-American. He's exceptional. Give him a break. He wrote from rehab, I found God. A tweet from a halfway house, he saw Krishna. At a dude ranch, he shouted Allah on a mountaintop. He cried for salvation, world peace, and love. Some 12-step blather. Don't leave a word of it. Spring break, he smashed into a tuk-tuk in Chiang Mai, maimed an old pedestrian in Phuket, plied them with cash, no questions asked. Can you give me an incomplete and comment on my poems? There's one about my grandmother who died of COVID. We shared a virtual hug, teared up on Zoom. Next week, he drove his Beamer off a cliff. Lucky he landed on a giant banyan tree, got away without a scratch. Instagrams of frat parties, sake bombs at Yuki's, arms around bronze girls in bikinis and sunsets. Please, Professor, 2 more days. I'm blogging about MLK, writing an opus, hand-rolling Maui Wowie for social justice. Last week, he came to me in a dream, dressed for Mortal Kombat Lizard Green. After decapitating a jihadist and 3 cleaver-wielding ghouls, he emerged from a flaming school bus, showered and shaved. How we heal this nation, I do not know. Primal sins erupt through tortured souls. He graduated with his brothers, magna cum laude, chanting liberté, égalité, fraternité, or death. So, you know these characters, right? We live on a board, you know these characters. Oh my goodness. But yeah. And it's a ballad. I'm bringing back, this is an ancient form, international, it's like, it's deep in our culture. The song ballad, deep in many cultures. So I'm bringing in the ancient forms. What else did you ask? What?
Let's see. There was little girl etudes or box measures.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay.
Solitary animal was another that was just thrown in the chat.
Okay. Lots of requests. Okay, this is all request night. Okay. Little girl etudes. Okay, more songs. The song form. Okay. They throw stones at the little girls. Over and over they throw stones. They who are their fathers, they who are their brothers. They burn the veil of the little girl, the pink one, her favorite, not too short, not too long, with gilded filigree. They burn it. They play double dutch with the little girl. Jump, jump. They are surprised by her fast feet, amazed at her swift tongue. Birdie, birdie in the sky, drop some whitewash in my eye. Birdie, birdie in the sky. Gee, I'm glad that cows don't fly. They like to chase the little girl up the block, through the narrow alley, through the barbed wire, onto the roof, over the train tracks, down the gulch. They point their fingers at the little girl. They shout, brat, maggot, whore, come back and feed your brother and wash the floor. They like to hit the little girl. The big one might hit back and wait till the wee hours and whack you with an axe. They kidnap little girls, she-bop schoolgirls, make them sex slaves and kitchen slaves. They like to kidnap Yashidi girls, Shabin girls, daughters of Shiloh. They like to sell little girls upriver for a few pounds of opium, 1,000 American dollars, chained to a bedpost, unnamed mother. They like to adopt little girls from distant orphanages. They make lovely daughters. The boys aren't easy. They climb the walls and are dyslexic. And the Asian girls are, smarter. They like to bury little girls, mounds in Nanking, in abandoned churchyards around the maquiladoras, along a border fence marked by wilted flowers and a crooked cross. To everything, there's a season, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to grieve, a time to dance, a time to throw stones, a time to gather them, a time for little girls in heaven. Now, people are surprised by the turn in the in the end of the poem. This mimics the old folk songs. You can change the quatrains to reflect contemporary themes, contemporary issues, and so forth. The girls I mentioned, the Yashidi girls and so forth, or I don't know, the news that that news was maybe 5 years ago, or older, but we could. This is about the living poem, the living song that, and of course that's the end. Of course, is biblical verse, so we go back to biblical song to so yeah. Yeah, I there are a lot of songs in this volume. Someone wanted to hear box measure. So there's a whole sequence about there's a girl box sequence, and they're mostly quatrains. They look like little boxes, constricted and compressed. Now this one's called Box Measures. You are a freak, a cuboid, a weirdo trapezoid, a rhomboid asswipe, a four-eyed coalition. You are flat as a board, titless as a parallelogram, a straight line. What's your point? A broken system. Go back to where you came from. I guess I remembered my geometry. So that's, very compressed, these little box poems. I'm still writing them now, I just I'm really into compression these days. What? Okay, other requests?
Well, there were a few from the let's see. Well, there was the chair and inquiry, and then also a few from the fruit etudes, another of the song.
Okay. Oh. Okay. Interesting about the chair and inquiry. it was commissioned, by Heidi Kumau. She teaches at the University of Michigan, and during the pandemic, her show was canceled, and instead she had this online extravaganza of sorts, and so she emailed me and commissioned me to write a poem for one of her for one of her installations. And so this cover, you think this is a weird cover? You look at it, this, I used her installation as one of the covers, as my cover. And if you look at it from a distance, it looks like a Japanese or a Chinese, brush painting, right? With a low red door, the vertical black words, a colophon of sorts. And then there's this chair with this ball of red yarn. But then in the middle is another kind of chair. And it could be, what kind of chair is this? It is something, is it from the dentist office? Is it, wow, there are stirrups in this, on this chair. So it's very intriguing. And of course it's political, given this day of okay. So so I wrote this for Christine Blasey Ford. Remember Christine Blasey Ford? Have we forgotten about her? Okay. I've suppressed his name. What's you remember the
Kavanaugh.
Was it which one was it?
Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh, right?
Kavanaugh. Thank you, Marcus.
Yeah. So he's one of our chief justices now, and she's forgotten, I'm afraid. So I thought maybe I'd write this poem for her to remember her. Chair and Inquiry for Christine Blasey Ford. 1, a chair, a bed, a girl, a basement, a judge, a chorus, a cry, a long silence, a spotlight, a recollection, a deposition, riddle, what has a straight back, 4 legs, 2 arms, her eternal struggle. 2, Plato, chair is a perfect form. A copy of a chair is quiet imperfection. A chair has feet and a soul and acknowledges the mother. Aristotle, if all red chairs were murdered, the ideal of the red chair would disappear from our consciousness. Kierkegaard, your truth, my truth, red chair, black chair. There's only one true chair, the one your ass is sitting on. 3, the chair of the department was a deceitful blob. The chair of the department was lachrymose. The chair of the department was an infidel from Bethesda. The chair of the department has a tiny bull nose. Sorry, we are betwixt and between chairs at the moment. The interim chair is in repose. When Ma Yuan painted bamboo, he became one with the forest. When Kumao painted chairs, she postulates suchness. Oh, the sadness of desk chairs with tiny wheels. Is truth therefore tyranny and felt? Is string theory foul matter? Is an old yarn a new story? Your assumptions have no legs. Will assassinate your filmographer. Is that a mullet or a Schopenhauer? Is rape a kind of wildflower? Truth and lies, one and the same. good and evil, one and the same, love and hate, Tao and chair. 9 chairs facing the camera, 9 chairs of a divided nation, 3 branches of government against the fourth estate. Chairs don't exist, only particles in perpetual motion. What has a straight back, 4 legs, 2 arms, swiveling back and forth, cranking up and down? Is a stool a chair? Certainly not. The world of forms is perfect. Copy of a copy of your grandmother's walker. Copy of a copy of the patriarchy. Copy of a copy of black robes. Copy of a copy of the fetal position. Copy of a transcript, paltry interlocutors. There's no justice in this uncharitable world. What is your reward for speaking out? You will vanish with a brief cry. He will be sworn in as overlord. So there's some visual elements that's hard to explicate in the reading, but there's this play with the little wheels in the chair, and there's plenty of spacing, and of course there's this. You can't talk about chair without talking about Plato and Aristotle and all those ancient philosophical arguments. And so no, yeah, I take my commissions seriously. When somebody says, well, we'll pay you something, or they say they email you and say, will you contribute something to this anthology and so forth. I take it very seriously and try my best. And I think this is an interesting poem. I think this is, and then also the cover really, the fact that I found, that it worked as a cover as well to make the book of poems, the book a beautiful, object. Yeah, I think, yeah, that is very important. But it's also very political about abortion issues and so forth.
Marilyn, did the artist Kumau, had you heard her interpretation or her feelings about what came of that commission?
No, she wanted to fly me to, because her exhibit finally opened, right? But she wanted me to fly me in, but I was already, booked up and I couldn't. So I zoomed in, and read this poem, and yeah, people love it. Yeah, it's really great to do ekphrastics, to write about, to write a poem about a painting or a song, or to work with other, work with other genre, work with other artists. It's really, really wonderful. But this poem should stand on its own without the the painting, the installation. It should, it should stand on its own as well. So that that's important. Solitary animal. The solitary animal walks alone. She has no uterus. She has no bone. She slithers around dark bars and libraries. She carves a beautiful girl on the cave wall, dances with Aurora Borealis, but goes home alone. We are 7.5 billion. Thrust onto earth together, we are not alone. We shout at the stars. Perhaps a Martian is listening. She, he, they, with 10,000 antennae, transversal labia quivering, searching for love. Your half-drawn monolid eyes are most tantalizing. May I take you home? Slime you with a green kiss. Breathe magma into your bones, claw rainbows onto your lips, redecorate your home, or vertebrate or vibrating signally. We are not alone. Sacrificed by a greedy admiralty, we shall live forlornly, be devoured headfirst by reptilian clones. Inch back into your fern pods, why don't ya? Baby, I call you, but you are not home. Somewhere in the cosmos are lies are reverberating. Fake news is sad news, shrapnel calcifying into bone. Each day we begin on earth as a dying person. Each breath is one less than yesterday. We shall die alone. Wow, this is my first sci-fi poem, I think. And yeah, and it began, formally began as a villanelle. And I thought, as a villanelle, that's how you hear repetition. But I thought as a villanelle, it was too, it was too strict. So I opened it up, and and so it's kind of a failed villanelle, and I made variations. So, yep.
Do you want to segue into some questions now, Marilyn?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Unless, was there another you wanted to share?
No, thank you for your request, because some of these poems I don't read that I have as much. So thank you for your request. It gives me pleasure to read different poems in the collection.
Well, we definitely appreciate the interactive nature of that, right? And so before we launch into the Q&A, if y'all want to show Marilyn some love, you can unmute yourself. You can actually hear a little applause. Beautiful sharing. Okay. So I know we have some questions for Marilyn. And again, you're welcome to use the hand raise function, and then you can unmute yourself, or you can throw a question into the chat, and we'll get to as many as possible in the time we have allotted.
Okay.
Let's see. All right. Well, while we wait for those questions to roll in, Marilyn, I'm glad that you read Chair and Inquiry, although I can imagine how, it's difficult to emulate, the ekphrastic element, but still, like you mentioned, the poem is very strong and compelling. It stands on its own. But just kind of speaking to some of the other commissioned work that you've done in this piece, or some of the dedications, some of the other commissions, like the 19th Amendment, Ragtime Parade. So, I mean, in addition to this being really wonderful and powerful poems, it kind of, I thought, was great because it reminds us of maybe like the historical public role of the poet, which has changed, of course, as our landscape has changed, and our relationship maybe with poetry in some ways have changed. So, like the troubadours, the balladeers, the elegizers. I mean, that's not really a word, but you know what I'm saying. So to you, this is sort of a large question, but I'm curious. What do you think of as like the public role, or just even sort of the role of the poet in the 21st century?
Yes, interesting. I've been traveling around, and I've been giving readings, and more I've become this, as I grow older, I just feel the love, and I just want to give love, I want to, and so and also as when, like, the poems like the 19th Amendment poem that was commissioned by the New York Philharmonic, I really enjoyed doing this poem. I heard the music, I heard ragtime, playing in my ear. I see the women marching, and I just love writing this poem. And I think in many ways I am a public poet, and the personal for me is political. and you can see that in all my work. Now, I don't think that I'm just speaking for myself. Not all poets need to be political. And I don't think that all poets write well politically. And, and so this is what's happening is it's really hip right now to be a political poet, but it has to be really, it has to be genuine. It has to come, it has to be authentic. So, so I've always done this. If from the start, when people didn't like what I did and said, "Oh, I don't want to hear about your grandmother. I don't want to hear about your issues," and when I went to Iowa, the Iowa workshop, they used to say, "Oh, I don't want to hear political poems. We hate political poems. It's diatribe. It's not poetry." And so, but things have changed, haven't so the landscape has changed somewhat. And but culture work in waves, and so what's hip today will not be hip tomorrow, but you have to just be true to your voice and true to your standards, to your gift. And so my gift is I write personal and political, and the personal almost always emanate toward the political. Or it might not happen in every poem, but it happens a lot that I can't help it. So even if I write a song, a sonnet, a whatever, I'm always on that soapbox. So it comes very natural to me. And it's, maybe it's from second wave feminism, maybe because I was born in Hong Kong, my family escaped China after the bloody Civil War. And because I came from my family spoke a Toisan dialect, which is an ancient, country dialect that, once we hit Hong Kong, people in Hong Kong looked at us with disdain because we sounded like we were, like we were from the country. So very young, I knew I was an outsider. And so I have all that within my imagination as an outsider, but also an insider, because those of us who were lucky enough to have jobs at the university, who were able to have, an advanced degree and to have jobs as poets, we're blessed, so I understand my role in the world. So I try to reach out. And I go back to Taiwan, and Hong Kong. I try to relish my my Pacific Rim roots. I guess Pacific Rim is no longer a viable term, but and as you can see, I also write about San Diego. Now, I think that California doesn't give a damn about poets. They don't care about me, really. California just cares about what?
We care about you, Marilyn. We care about you.
Maybe movie stars. No, this is why I'm saying. I'm just, I'm just joking here. But I know where my roots are. I know who my people are. But I see myself as an ambassador for poetry, and also I want to talk about ancient forms as well as what's happening in the contemporary world. I just love poetry, and this is why I think that I'm always excited after I finish a book, because I just think I just can never exhaust poetry, because I love it, and I just want to learn more and read more, and try different forms. And work the magic and combine, and fusion. I love the fusionist aesthetic. Just try everything. So this is why I never tire of the genre. A lot of people get tired of their own poems, right? But I feel that my poems age well because I write different types of poems, right? And I have a kind of East-West fusionist aesthetic. I go and it's endless. It's just this endless endless possibilities. And so I think I'm well, I don't know how to answer your big question, but I feel like I'm an ambassador for poetry, right? I think it's very important. I'm an auntie now. So I want to tell the good news about poetry, bring the good news about poetry to the world. But at the same time, I am a political creature. I'm always on that podium talking about the issues. So there you go.
Thank you. Well, I think just saying the role of the poet in the 21st century is to be an ambassador in whatever that way, it makes sense for your aesthetic. Overall, I think is a good message. Okay, so there were some questions in the chat, and actually, so you had mentioned about being amongst many things, like a California poet, right? And you had mentioned in the reading some of these poems being border poems, and so there was a question about that in the chat. Ilsa said what you meant by the idea of a border poem.
Well, what I live on the border of many cultures, right? Many of us do, but we physically live in San Diego, which is a border town, and so we have to, talk about our neighborhood. So this is why a lot of poems talk about the neighborhood, even the fraternity boys. That's in our neighborhood, it's in our backyard. You Go, Me Stay 2 Autumns is about my neighborhood during the pandemic. And even the bar I mentioned are in the neighborhood, some of the bars, right? Yuki's, I don't know if that's still there on the in Pacific Beach, but skateboarding, it's I think it's important to write about the neighborhood, right? So basically the borders, there are many, the border of East and West, border of outsider and insider art, about the past and the present. There are borders of, I had my undergraduate degree was in classical Chinese poetry, and there's, of course I can't go back to the Tang Dynasty, but I can bring Tang Dynasty into my poems, and the ancient and the contemporary. There are borders there, but I want to believe that poetry has this, that we don't need a visa for our imaginations to roam, for imagine. So yeah, the border space is a sacred space in my work. Yeah, it's and basically we live here. Well, right now I'm at Princeton. But I will be back. I have a little house there on a rock. I have a little house overlooking the freeway. So yeah. So the border is very important in my work. And I guess San Diego is important, but nobody cares about San Diego, right? Do they care about San Diego poetry? I don't know if they do enough.
I think all they care about now is that we're the most expensive city to live in. So
that's right.
So let's just write poems about that, and then they will care about us.
The San Diego Union, do they write about our work? Do they review poetry? Do they review San Diego writers? I don't think so. Does the LA Times review California writers? Not many. No. So it's not. So yeah, it's a quandary. Yeah.
So let's see, just to get to a couple of these questions here. There was a question about the title of the book, Sage. Maybe how you arrived at that. Obviously, there's poems connected to the concept of sage, or a sage. If you could speak a little bit on that.
Well, sage is this sacred plant that grow wildly in the desert and in some of, well, I don't know. Do you have it in your yard? I have some in my yard, but it's also the sage. The first poem's about is kind of a tongue-in-cheek poem. You're looking for the sage, in those ancient texts, in Tang Dynasty poetry. There's always this, there are these poems that that are looking for the sage, as if the sage were, is always this bearded man who's out in the woods contemplating the universe, and he is so wise, and he speaks to the stars and so forth, and so I was playing off that idea of the sage. Who is the sage? And in the first poem, the sage could be anybody. It could be, this gerbil who lives in Calexico. It could be, some wild woman running naked in Times Square. Could be somebody, some retired person floating in a motel pool in Florida. It could be anybody, right? The sage could be anybody. So that is, so I think that's it. I think also I'm coming to my sageness in my age. I'm an auntie now, so yeah. I think that's it. I think that's an appropriate title. I think. Do you think it's an appropriate title? And also it's funny. I'm trying to be funny and trying to be subversive and at the same time be wise, right? There are pearls of wisdom, but edged by subversion. So by some wild girl badassness. Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah, emphasis on the badassness for sure. Let's see. So there was another question about what role do visuals such as the chair picture in the chair and inquiry, or some of the spacing that you use, or also in the final poem, the poet's notebook, late birthday, and all night brush painting. What role do visuals play in your poems?
Yeah, I noticed that recently there's a lot of illustration, and sometimes too much of it, right? So I'm trying to I see myself as a kind of imagist poet to begin with, that my imagery tells the story usually in the poem. And imagery is very important in my work, but especially the last poem that had that long poem about the process of making art, about so in our notebooks we often scrawl a little bit, draw a little bit. So I try to try to indicate some of my drawings, try to, but not I didn't want to overwhelm the the pages with illustration, but I just want to give this idea of what a notebook might look like, with a little illustration here, a little scrawling there. But it's also a poem about brush painting, about memory, about the here and now, about having a wild birthday bash while painting all night. I mean, it's about the process of art and loving the process, right? So yeah, there are visual elements in the work. There are musical elements, right? It just happened that the Philharmonic commissioned me for this poem. And also happened that Smith College museum commissioned a poem for and also Heidi Kumau, commissioned me. So there's a lot of, there are a lot of ekphrastic poems in here. It's just by chance that I had these commissions, and I put them together in the book, right? And yeah, so the book came together organically, because some people put a book together, they have an idea in mind, they have a concept in mind, or a project. They're like project books, and I find some of them not so compelling in that it just feels like they have the concept and you're not sure how good the concept is, but you go with your concept and you fill in the book, and often the poems are not as strong, not the poems are somewhat yeah, they're not, they could be stronger, let's say. I think that is kind of the hip thing right now, kind of, to write project books. I just write poems, and I choose the best poems possible. And then I try to grow the book organically. So I was writing some songs. I was going back to I looked at ballads. I also, of course, I was looking at fruit as still life, but they turn into something else. I don't know. So they turn into these wild things. There's these wild things, but they began as, just look still life exercises, little etudes, little, and also these commissions. So and then I always have some long poems in the book, but I don't want to write a whole, I don't want to conceptualize a book. I want the book to grow organically, and that's why you can pluck out favorite poems and remember them. That's why they're memorable. So, yeah. So I forgot what the question was. Okay, about the arts, and it just by happenstance that I had these commissions. And so I said, oh, okay, there's something about the process of art making and painting. And, so I looked at I opened up my drawer and found various poems that speak to each other. So that's what happened. And also music, the song form and music, and music ideology came, also sort of came together.
Yeah, I know you had mentioned at the beginning of the reading that some students had passed along like a mixtape to you, and you were listening to some of these hip hop songs, and you're thinking like, I could do it better. Do you remember which artists were on that tape?
Oh my God. Oh, it was a mess. I don't know who, because, well, I don't know. I remember gangster rap. This is how, ancient I am. But the youngsters always, some younger students, they maybe, I don't know who they are, who the rappers are. I mean, but I thought, wow, that, that's kind of a lame rhyme, or that's kind of boring, that rhyme is not. So I thought maybe I'll do some polysyllabic rhymes, and it's really fun, and so it works for this poem. And it also those hip hop polysyllabic rhymes also work with a Chinese parallel verse. So that was kind of magical how that happened. But it's also a satirical poem that I could, that sounds good out loud. So it's really a fun poem. It turned out to be a fun poem, and had the students not sent me those, those mixtapes or whatever, I guess they're called, what are they called? They gave me a stream, the streaming thing. Can I call them mixtapes? If you don't have a tape, okay. But in any case, so yeah, so I learned a lot from that. So I learned, you just don't know where the magic's going to come from. You don't know where the inspiration is going to come from, right?
Yes, I think now I would love if we would still call them mixtapes, but like playlists.
Oh, playlists. I just remember those mixtapes, remember, yeah.
Right. Well, I too am ancient, and I would say, the hip hop, more of my generation, trumps what has come out more recently. I'm just going to go out there and say it. So
Okay.
I imagine maybe they gave you something. Not that all rappers now are. There's several artists who I like, but yeah, I can see how maybe you were thinking like we could do better.
Yeah.
All right. So I know we're keeping you up super late, Marilyn, but if you could just give us one more piece of sage advice that we would love to hear from you. It's the end of this semester, everyone's exhausted. We're getting to that point. How do you, when you maybe get to that point of exhaustion, find that inspiration or dig deep to write the poetry that you want to write? How can we use some of that energy, that wild girl energy?
Well, the thing is, I don't write every day. I read, and I'm just, and I'm as stressed as anybody. I'm teaching here, and I run around, give readings, and I do all kinds of stuff. It's it's important to read. I can tell from my students that they don't know their history. They don't know the history of poetry. They need to read more. I think I was lucky in that in my undergraduate degree was in classical Chinese poetry. My MFA, when I did my MFA at Iowa, I worked with Donald Justice formalists, and it was difficult at first. But what happened was that I absorbed so much, and it's important because you're young now. Those of you, well, we're all young. I guess we're all youngish, but when you're in your 20s and early 30s, and this is when you absorb everything, and it's important to read. It's important to absorb culture, of course, but it's important to know your roots and know and love your genre, to know your genre, because once you have the groundwork, later on, if in your 50s and your 60s, you can still find that, you can still draw from everything you read. I used to memorize Shakespearean sonnets. I used to go around and memorize poems. I just, my brain's not so clear now. but the thing is even if you're exhausted, you can wake up and read a couple of poems so you don't get rusty. If you want to call yourself a poet, you have to read. You have to know the history of your genre. It's, it sounds old-fashioned, but it is important to keep the fire going. The only way you can keep it going if you have the knowledge, if you absorb this great, this great genre called poetry, and then you can play and do whatever. Yeah, you can play, and bring hip hop, bring in whatever. It's I think a lot of people want the the fast track. But there ain't no fast track, really. It's knowledge. You have you can't be lazy, so you have to read and absorb. Okay. That's
Well, right. I think
I
if
don't
we're
know,
going
it
to,
sounds like an auntie telling you, oh, you got to read. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. But yeah,
it's so true, right? If we're going to become ambassadors of whatever our genre, our art, we do need to know our tradition, know
yeah,
our history, and to read widely. Absolutely.
right. Read widely. Yeah, that's right. That's also read. Just read widely. Yeah,
Sage auntie advice indeed.
auntie.
Well, again, let's thank Marilyn for her time, for her wisdom, her reading. You can unmute yourselves. Give her a
Thank
little
you.
applause.
Thank you,
so
everyone.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for having me listen to you and your lovely poetry. It's been great.
Well,
Thank you so
Dion.
much.
Mhm.
See you
All
soon.
right.
See you all soon. I'm coming back to San Diego, to the sun.
Sounds good.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Yes.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. My students, I'll see you next week. Marilyn, let's hook up in
Mhm.
San Diego when you get back.
Yes,
Au revoir.
drink some mojitos.
Yes, sounds great. Sign me up.